everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome to Onsite Offshore, a dedicated podcast for professionals involved in offshore projects, where we chat with business owners, project managers, analysts, software developers who have successfully supported their overseas clients from India, and also connect with entrepreneurs who outsource the work to offshoring firms. I'm your host, Suresh Ashok, founder of Mr Aswin with a passion for selling and supporting offshoring projects. I have a very special guest with me today, Mr Aswin Srinivasan from Everi India Pvt Ltd, an IT professional with more than 12 years of experience. He specializes in software development for the gaming and casino industry. Ashwin, we are very excited to hear from you about your journey in the IT industry and how you have successfully managed various offshore projects. Welcome to our show, Ashwin. How are you doing today?
Doing pretty good, Suresh. How are you?
Fantastic, man. First of all, thank you so much for giving your time for the interview session today. I really appreciate the kind gesture.
Actually, I should thank you for inviting me into such a podcast, actually, Suresh. Thank you, man.
Well, Ashwin, as I've told you during our offline conversation, this podcast is dedicated for professionals involved in offshoring projects, be it IT professional or BPO or any form of where you interact with international audience and serve them from India. So that's the whole idea behind it, behind our podcast. So let me dive straight to the topic. When did you start managing offshore development project? Do you recall your first client in the task?
Oh, yes. So I think I started my career in May 2011. Of course, at that time, I was not managing a team per se, because as a fresher, I just part of the normal daily routine of getting your tasks and whatnot. But I was part of a team that was basically in multiple locations, multiple geographical locations. So I was part and parcel of that particular team, which was doing a product called casino management systems. So where we kind of track patrons, players, as to how they basically spend their money within a casino and how to reward them better. So that was my starting of my career, of course, not managing it. The first time that I started managing kind of an onshore offshore team was possibly around 15, 16. That's when I got a team where we were trying to do a product called Hub. And I was part of a company called Bali Technologies, which is currently called Light and Wonder. So that was my starting stage, and my first customer when I started managing this team per se was in Macau. So that was my first customer managing a team in both onshore and offshore.
Right. So straight out of college, you started your career as a developer. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, that's right. So that's a funny note. You started off by that, right? So I kind of completed my exam. The last day of my exam was May 5th, and I joined the office on May 6th morning, 9 o'clock.
Wow. So what are the activities you did? What kind of training you went through? Because I know, because I'm not a developer, but would love to hear from you what kind of training you went through before they put you into the project, into a live project where you started interacting with the clients and all.
Funny that you ask about that again, Suresh, because when I joined the company called Bali Technologies at that point in time, I joined morning. Afternoon, I was given my desktop. And by evening 6 o'clock, I got my first bug to be fixed.
Right.
There was absolutely no training in that. So I think after my batch is when they started doing the trainings for the developers. But it kind of gave me a different approach. I did not go into this, classroom training of learning something and then getting it out and then waiting for someone to give me the task. So the leads and my managers who were there at that point in time, I still revere them a lot for, just putting me out in the ocean and seeing how I'm swimming and coming out of it. They took a different approach. Of course, it worked on me, may not work out on everyone. I'm not very sure. But that was a different approach that was taken to me. And I did not have any kind of trainings, to be honest with you, Suresh.
But how did you, someone throwing you into a project without much knowledge about what the domain is, and said you were asked to fix a bug. So did you have any prior experience? Did you do any course or your college experience gave you the confidence to jump into the project directly?
Kind of, yes. So when I did my college, of course, in communication engineering, not in computer science. Again, a different background. But during my last part of this thesis submission and my project structure, I was working with one of my professor for whom I had to learn the programming language. So I was doing something on C, C++, and then that gave me an edge, I would say, when I got into the company. And that gave me a vision where, I always tell this to my developers also, that we as developers are kind of gifted because we can see things that probably the QA or the product managers may not be able to see, because you can see what's actually written there and you can learn from it. At the end of the day, it's just a language, right? So you can learn what's happening. Of course, the domain knowledge is different, your functional knowledge is different, but you basically know what's going to happen if I click on this particular button, right? It's a totally different perspective when it comes, when you kind of know what's there, you have the access to it. It kind of opens up a different portal to us.
Right. And what was the outcome? Did you fix the bug or it went for a toss?
I know it. I did fix it, but not on the same day. It took me a few days. It was not a very big bug. I still remember that. There was a small bug, and apostrophe was extra coming on a label that I had to just go and fix. It took me a few hours, but yeah, I kind of got it. In order to find where it is, it took me some time, I would say.
Who was the client? I mean, local client or domestic client, Indian client, or it was US?
So it was, yeah, so it was a product based company, right? So I was working on one of the version that was targeted for multiple vendors or multiple clients. So we don't generally work on a specific customer, more on a product scale where it gets distributed across to multiple customers once we know that the product version is pretty stable enough.
Right. And Ashwin, can you explain the responsibility of a software developer in IT project? I mean, this might sound very generic. Including the role within the organization and how they manage clients. I mean, I want the fresher who are in the last year of engineering and want to jump into an IT industry. What kind of, from the beginning, the first 3 years of your experience as a software developer, and what was the next thing happened in your career? And like for a period of 5 years.
Understood, Suresh. So I can give you I always think this as a ladder in your growth career, whether as a developer or a tester, right? So let's talk about the development, since we are talking about the development per se, the roles of a developer. So when we start off with the career as a fresher, you're not being responsible. You're not given the responsibility too much because your work is cut off. You're given specific tasks. Hey, today you'll be working on this, this, and this. Hey, tomorrow can you pick these items? So your work is cut out, is carved out, neat and easy in smaller pieces for you to swallow, for you to digest them, right? So that's when you start off with your career. And probably it might stay there for the next 6 months or 7 months or a year at least. And then comes the logic where we tend the freshers, or right now they are experienced with 1 year, right? So they tend to think in a bit more different angle. They try to understand why we are coding the way that we are doing today, right? Why is this requirement coming into picture? How is this going to help our customers? So that's where the second ladder jumps into picture, where they start thinking about why they need to do it, right? And the third step in the ladder is when they understand that, hey, it's not just my code that I'm responsible for, but also my colleagues' code. Probably sets in, I would say, 2.5 or 3 years, right, in your cycle, depending on the team in which you are building up with. And that's a bigger responsibility now, because you're not just responsible for your piece of code, you're also responsible for the other piece of code that's written by your colleagues, right? And then comes your responsibility, or I would say this as a small gray area where you just need to understand where this is actually being implemented on the floor. When I say the floor, by the customer, whether it's in a grocery market or it's in a casino, any domain that you can take, a healthcare domain or wherever, how to make it more easier. That's the responsibility number 4, I would say. The last one that I thought can think about is when you try to have this tipping point where you start wondering about, hey, how do I make this more architecturally feasible? Or you can even go back and talk to your the requirement gathering team. It's going to be your product managers or your BAs, to whom you go and sit in and discuss in a level where you say, hey, is this discussion even needed? Is this requirement is even needed for us? And what needs to be done in order to get that implemented, and then carve it out for the lower ladder steps to consume it. Did I explain that a bit?
Well, fantastic. Let me. So the first role of a developer, like when he joins a company or a fresher with just a few months of experience, he will be assigned a task. So as an individual, what you said, like your focus was only on to complete that task which was assigned to you, correct?
That's true. Yep.
And the second step is you will understand the functionality and learn more about the business process and why are we doing this and what is the reason for us to use this code or do the coding work, correct?
Yep, absolutely right, Suresh. You're right.
Third phase is you start taking responsibility of the team as well, and fourth, more interaction with your other team members, testers, and PA to get a detailed understanding of the requirements.
That's true. That's when people generally realize that it's not just your code,
Right.
and you cannot just say, "Hey, I wrote my code. I'm done with my job. It's the other fellow who screwed it up." No, that's when people realize that okay, we are attached to this product so much that even if someone else is going down, even my career is going to go down. Right? They realize that probably at that stage when that responsibility comes to them.
Right. So you have seen it all now in the last year of being a developer. You don't
Fortunate to be
code you
there.
don't code these days, right? I mean, that's you're completely away from that.
No, Suresh, I do. I love coding. I'm very passionate about it. And a small anecdotal note, even my one of my senior director in the company,
Mhm.
he sits and codes with me. He likes to, the development doesn't stop, brother. Okay, so the development doesn't stop at all. You can be a CTO of a company and still be passionate about coding. Just that where you'll be working on probably changes, Suresh. Right. So when you talk about a fresher or a lead or someone like that, or a manager, even a manager for that sake, they work on codes that actually goes to production. I would put it that way. When it comes to management role who are still coders, their brain still works. They say, hey, I cannot live without coding, I still need to do that. They work on a different level where they do some kind of a POCs. They work on the next gen of products where they say, okay, is this doable, is this possible to do it, or it's not possible to do it. So that's the kind of way a developer actually grows. I would say even a CTO today, who likes to code will still spend some time, at least half an hour of the day, at least to learn something new or to try and see, hey, this actually works. Will this work for my product or not? So
Right.
that's the kind of approach that happens, Suresh.
Now I'll tell you, Ashwin, I have few of my friends who have done coding for the last 10 years. Now they don't want to do it. They're like, listen, I don't want to be a coder and I don't want to be a developer all my life. I want to be a project manager. I want to go to the next level. So I've met people like that as well. So that's the reason I was curious to know, after 12 years of experience, you still love coding. That's
I,
amazing. Yeah.
if given a chance, I would continue to do this for the next 20 years also, Suresh, to be honest with you, or more.
Okay. And what, according to you, are the core competency of a developer? Ashwin?
Uh, okay,
I
so
mean,
when it comes to,
let me say that again. Like, for example,
yeah,
if someone who is joining, a fresher as well as for an experienced guys, if you can categorize that, that will be really helpful.
perfect, Suresh. So I would say, I don't know if it's the right way to put this across or not, across the board as an example or not. An interview is like an arranged marriage, Suresh. Okay, so you get to see or get to, probably talk to them for 1 hour and then decide, hey, will this work out for me or not? Right. So you may not possibly be able to look at all the angles and just make sure, okay, this is the right person or this is the wrong person for me and my team. But what I do look for as part of core competencies, whether it's going to be a fresher or a senior level resource or a management resource for that sake, we look at the way they are responding to our questions in terms of their attitude, how well they take when we try to criticize or we tell them, hey, possibly this is wrong, can you think of a different approach, how well they respond to that. Right, these are some very minute details that are actually important, for your team to grow, because I believe a lot in my team, to grow together. It's not like, okay, I did my job, let them do their job. That's not the kind of place that we are looking at. Of course, the other ones come into picture automatically, right? When you talk about a higher level resource, we try to see how in-depth knowledge they have in whatever they claim to be on their resume, right? But when it comes to any kind of a resource, it doesn't matter it's a 1 year resource or a 15-year resource. We look at the attitude. We try to see how they might fit for the culture of my team and the company as well.
Fantastic, Ashwin. And one more thing, I heard from my friend as well. There are people using the freshers or the using AI tool to generate codes, and this guy was telling me, listen, I was able to easily figure that out. Listen, this code is not written by you. You use a tool. Have you encountered anything like that?
I have not kind of encountered something like that, because what happens during some of my interviews is I do not kind of ask any synaptical questions or say, hey, can you design me a calculator? Right? That's not the kind of questions that I ask for. What I look for the candidates who are coming into my interview panel, or sorry, for my panel, is I generally look at the depth test and the grip in which they have with the said technology. right? So that's what I'm more concerned about. When I say depthness, what do I mean? I generally mean, let's assume that, in English they say, okay, this is how you write a sentence. I do not ask a person, how do you write the sentence? Rather, I ask them, why do you write it the way it is? Why is it? You say, okay, this is an if else statement. Okay, why did you put an if else statement? Can you explain me a bit more on that? So I try to gather more strength in understanding those kind of ones, rather than saying, probably give me a program that does gives me an output of this value or output of that value. This of course works out up to probably a lead, senior lead, or a manager level, but of course when it goes beyond that, it's more of an architectural based one questions that happens. um, and at the same time, I still ask some basics. Okay, I still ask some basics. I have interviewed people with higher experience, but my questionnaire basically doesn't change. The questions may change, but the way in which I ask my questions or what I look for in them is kind of a bit different, Suresh, unfortunately.
Right. So, what do you think about the upcoming freshers whom you interview? Whether they're coming out of college, like with good knowledge, or they need some more learning before they apply for the first job as a developer?
Well, we did one round of freshers 2 years back, or the last year. We did one round of freshers intake in the company around a year back or so. It was a surprise for us, Suresh, because in all their resumes,
Mhm.
they had mentioned about all these new Greek words, AI, Python, and whatnot. I was like, data analytics. These are all common words that I saw on the resumes. But when you go and actually have the interview and ask them some questions, they're not able to handle it. The reason being is, you know, unfortunately, our education policy or the structure is in such a way that the final year project, you have two options. Either you struggle, you do it yourself, or you can do it from outside by getting an internship in some company. You can pay some companies to get the project for you. So those kind of things are always there. So what we generally look for in freshers, I do not expect a fresher to know what a 5 year resource might know,
Right.
right? But what we tend to know about is how ethically correct they are. How much do they actually know that they are putting and telling us that they know about? That's what I look at. Because once you are ethically correct, these things are always, you can imbibe knowledge. Have some training sessions, as you said, Suresh, as you asked me first.
Right.
Have some training knowledge to them. Percolate those knowledge to those freshers. Most of them can consume it, especially in today's generation. The Gen Z is pretty intelligent, let me tell you that, Suresh. Okay, I all the 10, I think we took around 10 freshers in the company, and all of them have been doing amazing. They may not know everything in day one, right? So
Right.
what we look for on those kind of interviews are more like, how passionate they are,
Mhm.
how ethical they are in their answers. And you can bluff, right? You can just bluff your teeth out, but i- with experience, you get to know who's bluffing, who's not bluffing, and that comes to us sometimes.
Right. And Ashwin, as a developer, what are the key tools that you use on a daily basis? I mean, from initial level of when you started working, and I'm sure like now you must be using different tools or different system.
Yes. So when it comes to coding aspect, Suresh, so I was a core .NET developer for a longer time. Then I've been, playing around with other technologies. So I've been using Visual Studio all along my life, more than anything else, I would say, right? And I've also been working with the SQL Server databases, more on a relational database level. I haven't worked with any non-relational databases, I would say, like Cassandra or anything, but I have done my POCs on them. But core, I've been working with Visual Studio, and now since everyone is moving into this Angular world and whatnot, we have been working on some of these other Visual Studio codes or Eclipse and other IDEs per se. Apart from that, we do use some of the tools like Grafana for managing or looking into our logs, looking into our performance tuning applications. Worked with few tools, not on a day-to-day basis, but definitely a lot helpful are some of these memory profilers. So usually, we do complain about a lot of things like, hey, it's not as fast as it should be, right? So that's where these tools are like, memory profilers come into picture, and spam profiler, red hat profiler, so they come into picture for us. So that's my everyday tool for my development process.
Right. Any reason for sticking with .NET till now? Because I've seen people who started their career as a .NET developer have now become a full stack developer. Moved into Microsoft Dynamics CRM because the backend is .NET.
Hmm.
Any particular reason for you to stick with .NET till now? Sure, you started with .NET and now what? 10 plus years now. You never thought about changing any technology or moving into different vertical?
Well, okay. So it all depends on the product that you're trying to launch into the market, Suresh, right? So the products that I've been working with are all pretty stable products in the market. They run on so many systems, right? N number of they run, like for example, the product that I'm currently working with runs into thousands of terminals. So I don't want to give the exact number, but they run into thousands of terminals. So they look for stability more, right? I might get a whack for saying this, but honestly speaking, I find .NET to be highly stable. The versioning, the experience that it has grown with all along these years, it's been amazing. I have a team, my colleague, who does work on C even today, right? So they do some hardware based codings, and trust me, they are one of the best teams to work with. They have zero bug defects on production, Suresh, for the last 3 years. Zero. So that's the kind of stability that you get from some of the more stable coding styles. But that doesn't stop us. Yeah, it does come with its own negatives, but we really look at what our customers want. Do they really need it? If they say yes, we do need this, then we try to do it in whatever technology is stable at that point in time.
Yeah, so the reason for you to stick with .NET is because of the product you were working with. You were motivated with the product which was given to you and the execution of the product. Correct me if I'm
That's
wrong.
right. That's right. So it's more of the product on
Okay,
the necessity of the customer. We try to fit both of them together and see, okay, so this is the right approach, right?
right. I mean,
So
yeah, go
just
ahead.
to build on to your same question, right? Now that we are also thinking about how to make it more performance efficient, how to make our customers' life more easier, then we think about some other technology, right? That's when we think about, okay, let's try do this. Does this help with them, right? And those are the kind of reasons that kind of put us. We don't have a single chill pill for every kind of request that comes in, right? So we look at what is the actual reasoning for the ask and try to see if this fits them for them. And if as long as it fits them, I think I wouldn't say that sticking on to .NET is a bad thing.
Oh, that's great, man. Because uh, some of the conversation I had with my colleagues and friends who are .NET developers, the idea was, listen, the pay scale is very less. Like if I stick with .NET, I need to keep upgrading my knowledge into latest technologies. And Microsoft Dynamics is something they jump into. And there are people like switch to Java as well. So happy to know that you have stuck with .NET and you evolved and grown as well. And you thought
That's
very
true. So
highly about the product as well. Not giving up on that.
that's true. You're right. So it's highly evolved, and as we speak, .NET is keep on evolving. Also, they came up with the core systems, and then they told, okay, we're gonna merge both together. We're gonna
Right.
call it as .NET 7 and whatnot, .NET 8. So their performance and their stability is pretty good, Suresh. I would say, based on my experience. And I have had teams who work also on Java, who are working with C. They're all pretty stable teams, I would say. When it comes to web, that's where the market I feel has grown tremendously, Suresh.
Right.
With the level of frameworks that are coming in every day. You have Angular, you have React, you have this. Lately I was studying something about something called Tauri systems that are trying to replace the Electron apps. Slack, right, Suresh? You might have used
Yeah.
Slack in your
Yeah.
past, right? So it was a big application, I would say, right? So, and Firefox, for that fact was pretty slow before. You'd have seen a definitive improvement on Firefox after 2019. I suppose nowadays people started using Firefox and Edge more. In fact, I've stopped using Chromium engines. I've started using Edge, and I'm
Same
still
here.
being
Same
teased.
here.
Yeah, I do. I
Only as nothing else. I don't go.
Nothing else. So I still get teased sometimes by my fellow colleagues, but I tell them, okay, the reasoning for that, right? So they are also still evolving in the background, and that's where the quantum leap has taken, Suresh, when it comes to this UI rendering and all those logics. When it comes to servers, you're right, there has been a major drastic improvement when it comes to these Node.js and other things. They are bulky, let me
Same
be honest.
Flutter as well. Like, I've received many requirement on Flutter. Like you guys have a team or developer in Flutter. You heard about
Yeah, so we do have an offshore team who works on offshore. I mean, offshore from India. Sorry.
that?
So, who have a Flutter-based one. Let me tell you. So, finding a good, valuable resource on Flutter is not as easy as it sounds, right? We have seen our own highs and downs on seeing Flutter resources, recruiting them. They are pretty good. They're all fun stuffs to work with. My boss actually tells me, Ashwin, you want to play around with the fun stuffs? Play around, but make sure that it's highly stable, because we can't go down on production even for a minute. So
I'll,
so
I'll,
it's
I'll tell you a scenario, Ashwin. We received a requirement for to develop a mobile and web app.
Mhm.
And we explored all the opportunity. We also did a POC, like our team did our own investigation. And the client wanted to see what's in for Flutter, whether they can do it Flutter or not. And we said yes. But the only challenge is, as you said, the stability, because it's new in the market,
Yep.
and the single core thing, whether they can sustain for 3 years, you never know. So finally, we went with, we proposed React, and they agreed to it.
Mhm.
And now, it's almost the finishing touch, which we're giving for the project, where we have developed a mobile and web app for a client. I mean, just
Oh,
so I'm
that's
doing that across, because, yeah, I mean, in terms of stability, you spoke about on the latest technology. Yeah.
That's true, Suresh. So that's always there, right? So as you meant, there are few customers who still ask for a specific technology to build with, though it has not happened probably for us. But I've seen my friends who are working in other companies who have been saying, "Hey, my customers saying, why don't I work on with this technology?" I We generally have this. One of my product manager head, when he was visiting India, he used to tell me this: uh, let the customers tell what they want, let the product managers decide how they want it to be approached, in a sense how it want to be look and feel and whatnot. Let them decide it, and let you guys tell us two things: one, how it has to be done in terms of tech stack, and tell when it will be done, right? As long as this bifurcation or this segregation of this particular answering to the question, who's answering to which question, is there, I'm sure that every product would be a success, Suresh.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Ashwin. And Ashwin, what are the different phases of a project you typically participate in? I know early stages was different, but now as a technical manager, you have more responsibility of managing a team. So who are the stakeholders you interact regularly before the start of the projects and during the projects and while the delivery of the project?
Okay, so when it comes to any of these project requirements, we usually have our own communication channels with the product managers or the PDMs that we talk about, and there are colleagues called
Ashwin, sorry
TPMs.
to interrupt you. Let's start with the basic. Like, for example, you guys won a contract, right?
Hmm.
And the first, obviously, the sales team will interact with the end client or the potential prospect. And at what stage, who participated in helping the sales team, and then what's the next step, and when the development team joins in.
Okay, so when it comes to this kind of a product-based category, at least in our domain, in the gaming domain, Suresh, it's more where, if I'm right, it's more where the product gets pitched to the customers rather than the requirements coming or percolating from the customers. It's the other way around. The product gets built,
Got it.
the
Yeah.
POCs get built
No,
based on the
because I'm,
challenges.
I'm talking with a service development mindset. I understand that now. You're very comfortable. Good.
Yeah. So what we do generally, right? When, let's assume that I have a product. Okay, let's assume I'm developing a Facebook for Suresh. Let's assume you are my customer. I've developed Facebook for you, and then I'm giving that product to you. You use it. I tend to look at how you're using this product and see what are the challenges that you're facing. Okay, I see a fact that, let's assume you are using two different products, Facebook and Twitter, but you are trying to communicate with each other. The problem in doing that is you're navigating between these two products. So what we do is, our sales team, or our we have our own team of customer uh, executive assistants or people who work with our customers who try to understand their pain points. They come back and they tell, hey, look, Suresh is actually navigating between these two applications and they use it very rigorously. So how can we make this more easier? So that's how our requirements come in. It's pretty vague, right? So that's when our product management team picks it up for analysis and says, okay, is this viable? Can I make Facebook and Twitter talk to each other? Okay, let's go back to our technical team and understand this if it's feasible or not. Then they look at the feasibility of the product to say, okay, this is what it might do on a very high level, right? Till now, actually speaking, I'm not involved, right? It all happens on a very high level where the product team discusses with, how to position this product on the market. And to be honest with you, Suresh, when it comes to my domain of work of gaming domain, it's a highly, highly regulated domain. Let me tell you that it's more highly regulated than our banking domains. Okay, so we'll have to look at various jurisdictional issues that might come in if I position this product in this way. Is this legally allowed to be done? Okay, let's assume it passes that window also. Then they look at the viability.
Can you give an example of this the law thing which you just mentioned
Okay,
in more
so
detail? Yeah.
yeah,
For
so
example,
when it comes,
you want to launch something in India, no, you want to do something in India or in the United States.
okay, let's assume in this case, right? So let's assume that, very similar to US states, we have Indian states also, right? So let me give you an example out of India itself, right? So let's assume that you have a casino in Chennai, in Tamil Nadu, okay, and then you have a casino in Bangalore, Karnataka state, right?
You can mention Goa, man. Forget
Ah,
Chennai.
yeah, Goa is there. It's always there. We're going more unrealistic ones. So, going by this standard, right? So, when it comes to casino gaming, Suresh, there is it's a fine line, right? When where we don't want people to get addicted to it, right? So that's when the government says, hey, you should follow something called as a responsible gaming, right? You should know that he's actually doing this out of his own intention and that he's not addicted to it. He or she is not addicted to this, right? So what they do, they try to, let's take in this case, you are having a big casino and you want to go play in your table games. You want to go play poker or blackjack or whatnot. We try to make sure that you walk up to some place to get your chips from your card. Tamil Nadu, let's assume they say that as a rule.
Right.
You need to walk away from your table. You need to go somewhere else to use your card to get cash from it in order to play. So now this is called as a cool off period, right? So they walk to a place, they take the money and come back. Let's assume another state might say it's okay for me. They can still take cash from where they are sitting itself so that it brings in more revenue, so that it brings in more tax, right? So these are kind of the jurisdictional issues that comes when it comes to the payments. Similarly, there are jurisdictional issues when it comes to how a slot basically works, right? Let me give you an example. So have you seen the slots, Suresh, in a casino? You might have been to Goa multiple times, if I'm
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So so how do these slots work? So are they purely based on luck? I would say kind of yes and no. But would you be able to say, okay, so 1,000 people have played in it. Now, if I go and hit even with that $1 or a ₹1 bet, I'm gonna hit the jackpot. No, that's not how slots basically work. So what they do is based on jurisdiction, they talk about something called as a hold percentage, Suresh. How that basically works is, let's assume that you are putting 100 people are there playing the same slot machine. Each person is putting ₹1 into the machine to play. Okay, so that brings in ₹100 into the slot, right? So the states determine how much should be the hold percentage of a slot. What do they mean by that is, going by this same logic of 100 people each putting a ₹1 coin in the slot, the states will say 85 percentage or 87 percentage should be given back. In a sense, at the end of the day, if I open the slot tray, the customer revenue should not be greater than 15 rupees, right?
Okay.
What the regulation doesn't talk about, or basically gives the freedom to some of the players, or sorry, some of the industry teams, is that they don't determine how this $85 need to be split. Whether you give it as a one shot as to a single person per day, you are giving it as $85 jackpot, or you are giving like $10, $15, $80, $16 or whatnot to multiple people. That's what they don't talk about. And that's where these gaming regulations come into picture. And that's where mathematicians comes into picture, where they write algorithms to determine the game fluency.
Oh, that's a new piece of information. Ashwin, never heard about that. So many
Yep.
things happens in the back end.
It's huge. There are a lot of mathematicians who work on a game, on a slot game, Suresh.
Wow, fantastic. What is your current roles and responsibility in Everi India Private Limited?
So I am currently a
I
tech
think your title
manager.
in LinkedIn as a technical manager, but that's very short. Like, I'm sure you do. Yeah, go ahead.
So I handle some of the UI products for the payment systems. So every basically has multiple verticals within them: gaming, payments, casino operations, multiple verticals within them, and out of which I work basically for few teams that deals with the UI or the front end products for the payment systems. So some of them lie with the on a desktop, some of them run on kiosks, some of them run on a very leaner model of a kiosk that looks just like a TV, nothing bigger than a TV. So these are the various devices, and of course, I also handle a team that does some payment products that works on a tablet. So that's my main job role, basically handling the development. I'm responsible for the development and delivery for some of these payment related products.
Right. Fantastic. And what is, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you've been only working with the gaming and casino, domain, right?
I love this domain. Let me tell you that, Suresh. I have
Different from other service line now.
so
Because you
okay. So from
mentioned, initially that the regulation is more stringent than the banking domain. So how is it different from other service line as well, apart from the regulation? Do you want to add on the technology side as well? The
okay,
software. Yeah, go ahead.
sure. So when it comes to technology standpoint, or apart from regulation, if you ask me, um, honestly speaking, the casino consumers or the customers who are our casinos at the end of the day, uh, we are actually helping casinos run, right? So they are not the end users per se. The end users might be a patron or a player who basically walks into a casino and plays the game and walks away with jackpot or not walking away. So when it comes to how different being in technology, uh, I wouldn't say that we are very far ahead of others in technology. The reason being is multiple layers. One major layer that I find when I try to peel off this onion, Suresh, is that the customers are more like, okay, this works for me. Can you make this a bit more faster for me? Because when it comes to casino gaming or the casino domain, introducing a product goes through a lot of legal regulations in the market. So we may not play around with a lot of things, but at the same time there's a separate R&D team who looks at the future and says, hey, can I do something like this? For example, in my previous organization, we had a separate team that used to work on the cutting edge products, right? For example, I think in 2015 or 16 they patented something on virtual reality on the gaming floor and things like that. So when it comes to such kind of work, whether it gets implemented on the product or not, it's probably far off, I would say. But what helps me or what drives me in this particular casino domain is the kind of contacts and the collaboration that happens within within the companies, right? So even though, let's assume, Infosys and TCS, right, they are two different competitors who might develop similar products, but they will still have products that collaborate among each other in order to make the life of the consumer a bit more easier, right? So it's a highly collaborative market, I would say, Suresh.
Right. So, what are some of the challenges you have experienced working in the gaming industry, Ashwin?
Okay. So when it comes to challenges, it's more of, as I can riddle it off from my previous discussion also, where I was mentioning about the acceptance of a technology, in the floor. So that's the kind of challenge when it comes to we trying out new technologies in the market. We have to make sure that it's highly stable. It's highly secure, especially when it comes to the payment industry where I'm working with, right? When I try to do something, I say, hey, let me use Flutter today. I'll be first asked question, how secure it is.
Right.
Is it as secure as you think it is? Right? And a lot of penetration testing goes on, a lot of testing on our networking, a lot of testing happens, by ethical hacking groups. They try to see how good or how secure our products are. When it comes to security, it's very much required, not just in the payment, Suresh. I even in the previous the product that I was working with in my previous company, as I told you, it was called Casino Management Systems or CMS systems, where they basically track the patron, right? When I say tracking the patron, I should be very specific on that. They basically track how much a patron is actually spending on their casino, right, in order to reward them better. Now, in order to do that, they need to collect personal information, your SSN number, your
Right.
phone number, your email ID, right? And that stays on the servers. And when it comes to that, it has to be highly secure,
Right.
right? There is no way that we give security a miss. In fact, my super boss actually says this: have security by design during the design time,
Mm.
not after coding. Do a security analysis, right? Because you will go back to the drawing board again. And if it's a big time screw up, you need to rewrite the whole thing, right? So security by design is something that drives us today, and that's what stick me you know me sticking to the casino domain is I have started thinking in a different way, where when we write the code or when we design a product, we think about security in the first level. Leave out your performance comes next for me, right? Security is the first one, right? And in the last few years, especially right before COVID and right after COVID, you can see multiple articles where there have been multiple attempts at the casinos
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
hacking. Not even banks, I would say casinos, because they thought it to be a vulnerable area. But trust me, most of the products are highly secure when it comes to casino domain.
Fantastic. Sounds good. Well, that's a new piece of information. I mean, never thought about, so many things happens in the back end to run a software in a casino or a gaming industry. And your company has a customized product for these industry, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Uh, they don't have a customized product for a specific customer. It's more of a product that we launch for multiple customers. After piloting at few places, we know that it works. It's great. That's when we. That's how we strategize ourselves, I would say.
Well, let me ask you another question on that. For example, there is a casino like I'm running, and I want a end-to-end software which takes care of every aspect of a gaming or a casino industry for me to run it smoothly. Do you have a product for that, or you interact with the customer and start developing from the scratch, or you have some 50% of a product which covers the basic stuffs of the gaming and casino industry, and the rest of the thing you develop on the go.
Okay, so I would say this.
I mean,
Sorry,
am I framing it correctly, or
you are right. But let me tell you a different approach to this. Um, uh, your assumption about how our basic assumption about how a casino is runs is totally different from the reality aspect. Okay, uh, I would possibly say there is no single vendor today who can help a whole casino run without any other vendor's help. Okay. The reasoning for that is the multitude of department that sits behind those neat looking, all freshy fresh and all the lights and blinkers. There's a huge teams that are involved in the background. For example, let me tell this, right? When you start, let's assume, Suresh, you're starting a casino. Okay. You need your own legal team that works on all your legal aspects. You need a team for your slots, the games, the manufacturing. You need a team that runs the floor. You need security systems in place. You need tables in place, your table games like your poker, blackjack, whatnot. So I would say probably one of the biggest vendor in the market today is IGTs, if I'm right. They're one of the biggest vendors in terms of the number of employees that are there and whatnot. They are pretty big, massive. It's like TCS, okay? It's like TCS, Suresh, where they work on multitude of departments. In the background sits other set of departments, surveillance, credit management. Do you know casinos gives credits, Suresh? You
Yeah.
go into a casino, if you're a VIP patron, they'll give you credits.
Right.
They'll give you like $1 million worth of credit line for you to play around with, right? So there's a credit team that looks at your credit worthiness, that decides that. There are settlement teams that works with the settlement of all these processes, the vendors, the payment vendors, and whatnot. So it's a huge team. And generally speaking, any uh, uh, particular company that might cater to running a casino on its own, I don't think it's there today, Suresh.
Right. So, what does your product really bring to the table? Your company.
So, okay, so my product basically brings money into the floor for the patrons to play. When I say patrons, it generally means the players. Sorry for interchangeably using the words patron and player, but our product basically brings money into the floor. So there is a separate ATM team, that works on ATM missions and softwares. So there are places within casinos where you can go use your cards and get chips, or your cash, and go play in the casino. So that's why it's my products are pretty important when it comes, because without this, people won't be playing, because they can't bring money into the floor, right? Unless you bring out of your pocket, you may not be able to play in the floor on the casino if the product doesn't work. So even if it is down for 10 minutes, trust me, the casino will be furious, because their cash on floor reduces immediately the moment it stops working.
Right. So, you guys work 24/7. You have a team. I mean, who are your clients? I mean, you don't have to name them, but which geographical location? Predominantly is in the US or UK or
Yeah.
Australia?
So every targets at least have a lot of their customers on the US floors. We do have customers on Macau, and now we do have few on Australia as well. So these are our general geographic location when it comes to every. Most of our most of my clients are mainly from US zones, and very few customers are there in Macau as well. When it comes to, as you asked about 24/7, yeah, the support team basically is there, that handles all these challenges or issues that comes into picture based on the severity of the issue. People from the development team or the management team jumps in. The IT is always there to help us around. The IT team is pretty solid in the company, who manages all these systems for us.
Right. And what is your biggest professional success so far, Ashwin, on any of the development projects? If you remember, starting from when you started your career or during the last 5 years of tennis, any project you remember, you feel that wow, like I did a great job, or our team did a wonderful job, and you received some wonderful testimonial for that as well.
Okay, so two things. One is a product that I worked on just before I quit my previous company. I was given the opportunity to go and present my product to the customers. I've never seen that happening to any developers before, even till today, right? You don't send your developer to go and present the product to a customer. I still remember it was in South Africa that I traveled to present the product to my customers in South Africa. And I especially remember that because I just came back to India 2 days before my marriage. So I was like, okay, I shouldn't miss this flight. I shouldn't miss this flight. Right. So that was running in my background. But coming to the product per se, it was a beautiful product that, I presented to customers. And it was my first large gathering as well. I was presenting the product to probably 40 or 50 people on the floor. Uh, 10 from each department. Okay, compliance team was there. There was this payments team, there was this other cage management team and whatnot. So that was a huge product that I worked with, and got a great success. That's when I knew that I could probably talk in public. That's the other one. When it comes to development, where I felt I really did a difference was a product where I recently worked with, and the product was having a lot of field issues, and then we kind of made sure how to prioritize them
Right.
and how to knock them out one by one. And today it's highly stable, where the management is very happy about the product. So I feel, I can take these two as an example as success, where I received very good accolades from my colleagues, from my higher ups, and also from the customers.
Right. And Ashwin, for someone who's starting out their career in the IT industry and want to be a developer, what guidance or suggestion would you offer?
I would say instead of going, into keeping your fingers in a lot of pie,
Mhm.
just stick it to one, right? The full stack development is great. It's all big. It's great, but it's more of a breadth, not the depth. Um, be more have more in-depth knowledge on whatever you're doing, right? Whether it's Angular or C Sharp, Java, Flutter, wherever you're going, I would suggest them to go have in-depth knowledge. Start asking the questions why, probably
Mhm.
from day one, so that you get more knowledge, and you will definitely stand out if you're able to answer the why questions rather than the how questions.
Right. And how do you manage your on-site and offshore team? I mean, very good in managing your offshore team. Do you guys have a presence in the United States or in any of the foreign location? And how do you interact with them in communicating with the same line of project?
Yeah, so I have my teams in the US as well. My boss is in US. My product management team sits out of US,
Right.
and my support team stays in the US. So we kind of have this, uh, you know, where I've set this kind of a shell
Mhm.
where the developers, the core developers who work on the product day to day, are not disturbed beyond their work hours, right? They're
Mhm.
not disturbed much. Whereas the team leads or myself, we take in all those grudges a bit. We kind of take those hits a bit, where we tend to have these conversations with the product management team if it happens, pretty late into the night. Our teams in US also are pretty good. My boss is also very good when it comes to timing. He tries to align his evenings with our mornings, so we try to start off a bit early in the morning so that it's equally easy to run, because my office is in PST. My office is out of Vegas, so they are in a PST time zone. So we kind of manage it more in terms of uh, what is feasible. It's more fluidic, Suresh. It's not like, oh, okay, you need to join this call at 9 p.m. and the call goes till 11:30 p.m. That's not the hard and fist rule that happens in my team. And the culture of the company that I'm working with, the team that I'm working with, actually supports that a lot.
Yeah. So, and also coming back to my other question, when it comes to putting together a dream team for your project, what approach do you take? Like, what percentage is completed in the US or in the UK, and what are the tasks done by the offshore team?
So right now, my offshore team, I don't have a developer on the offshore team, Suresh. I have Q testing people, QA people there in offshore,
Mhm.
and the support team that runs out of offshore. So that's how current strategy is, when it comes to my team. But
Right.
there are teams from my colleagues who have in both, onshore and offshore development teams, and they kind of collaborate. The beauty of having such a team, Suresh, you might have heard this from others also. When they sleep, we wake up, and then when we sleep, they wake up, right? So the actual run of the product happens 24 cross 7, not 24 cross 7, I would say 24 cross 5 probably, right? So that's the beauty of this, and that's where our company loves this also approach. Let's assume a customer complains about something, 2 a.m. their time. It's okay, we are there to support them because it's just afternoon for us, and the other way around also, right? So that's the best part about it. And coming to a dream team, having it in both onshore and offshore, and sharing of the resources and the knowledge, puts a totally different perspective and a quality to the product, I would say, Suresh.
Fantastic. And Ashwin, what recommendation or suggestion would you offer to clients from foreign countries who are interested in partnering with outsourcing firms for their IT work? I mean, I ask this question to everybody, like, because some of the feedback I still get from people is like, Indian developers are not up to the mark. But I know like the kind of development activities we guys do. So, what suggestion would you offer to a foreign a company like who want to choose the right partner, right offshoring partner?
Okay. So when it comes to this, right, I'm not sure the reasoning behind saying that probably Indian developers are not doing that great. I would probably tell them that's not the case, right? Initially, long back, I think they chose India as an offshore team, probably because of the price values. It was cheaper to do it in India. But trust me, the people who are doing business or partnering with Indian developers, whether it's a consultancy firm or whatnot, it's more for the quality. The reasoning for me to tell that again is because you can see a lot of these consultancy firms that are coming up in Nigeria. There are consultancy firms out there in UK. There are consultancy firms that were in Ukraine as well, right? And they are beautiful developers there as well. I wouldn't say no to that. But I would probably take an example over here where my family always goes to a doctor who has got more experience, right? Probably a bad way of putting that, but that's where it lies, right? So as the companies in India have grown for the last, 2 decades or 3 decades, they have seen a lot of examples. They have seen a lot of different cases where they are able to study and know what is good for the customers, right? So trust me, Indian developers or in India, the market might be a bit costly today when compared to 10 years before. But there is a reason behind that, because the specialization that is there in India, the knowledge and the right kind of resources that you get in India, trust me, it's amazing, Suresh, and lots to come for sure.
Do you think our team gets enough credit, both internationally and domestically? I mean, within the organization as well as from external partners or vendors?
Oh yes, that is definitely there, Suresh. Right. So it all depends on the culture again, Suresh. It totally depends on the culture. I do not want to name a company that I know about where my very very close friend was working about, where they basically use the Indian team to just offload the tasks that are mundane in nature, right? So, and once it is done, they just don't care about the teams in back in India. There are such examples as well. I wouldn't say no to that at all. It all depends on the culture of the company. So whenever you join a company, it's not just the pay scale that we might need to look at, but also the culture. But of course, you may not be able to get that within an hour, and that's why we have all these other places like LinkedIn where you can look at the company, the people who are there. I have seen, especially today's generation, I have seen people who have taken interviews and then they ping me in LinkedIn and then ask me about the company's culture. Right, they are going in the right direction, I would say, Suresh. So it all depends on the company's culture. Unfortunately, I have worked in just two companies, and both the companies have been good to us. Right, when it comes to Indian teams, they've been ever expanding. Uh, I think they were around 2025 team
Right.
member team in 2018. Today, it's more than 300 in India.
Ashwin, what website or portals do you frequently browse or follow to stay updated on the latest technology news?
Okay, so I basically use two major ones, Suresh. So one is Medium. You might need to probably scout for some good articles in them, but the quality of those articles are pretty good when it comes to Medium's articles. The
Mhm.
other one that I recently started doing, probably in the last 5 6 months, is this Byte Go by Alexio. I started getting these articles from them on LinkedIn. Started looking into them. They write very beautiful articles, especially about system design patterns, how basically your Facebook works, how Twitter works, how Netflix is able to stream such large quantum of data. So those kind of intriguing questions, how on a larger enterprise level things are being designed. Byte Go is a very good piece of place that you can register to. Of course, it's both Medium and Byte Go are having subscription models, but it's worth the money, I would say, Suresh. Apart from that, I buy a ton of courses on Udemy and some on plural sites. So, for example, I'm recently doing a course on Rust programming and Tauri, a system that I'm using. So, I mean, planning to use basically. So, I use Udemy to learn such things, Udemy and plural sites. Ton of things are there, but majorly, I would say these four, Suresh.
Right. And how do you manage your work-life balance? I know the IT industry can be very demanding, high level of stress, especially the domain you're working in. I just realized it because I never knew so many things happens in the casino software or implementing a casino software. So how do you manage your work-life balance and what all the activities you do to relieve, just relax?
Okay, so it basically comes down to planning, Suresh. So I spend at least an hour or two over my weekend to plan my next week. Okay, I'm that kind of a person who likes to just plan the next week, upcoming week. How does it look like? Of course, there are curveballs that comes, right. You might have a severity issue that comes up out of the blue, or a security issue that comes out of the blue and just puts you out of the curveball. But apart from that, when we plan well, the good thing that happens is I don't need to be awake at 1 a.m for calls and whatnot. I try to make sure that I cut all those things by 8 9 at max. Though it does happen where you might have an ad hoc call with the product owner or someone, where you just need to get on a call for a quick 15-20 minute and discuss that. Apart from that, yeah, the work life balance, it all depends on how we plan well and how we are able to communicate across the board the correct timelines, right? So as long as we are pretty meticulous in doing that and making sure that there are no more scope creeps on the items and things like that, it's definitely manageable, I would say, Suresh. It's not as bad as it sounds. It is there. It might affect every now and then. There might be some issues, a curveball, but apart from that, it's not all rosy, but at the same time, it's not difficult as long as you plan your day right.
Any sports activity, Ashwin?
None, Suresh.
No, no,
So I
no.
used to play badminton and TT when I was in Chennai, but now I've moved to Mangalore. So here I don't play much. I don't spend too much time on that. Just try to walk around a bit. That's the max, unfortunately, for which I get beatings every day.
You still look so fit, Ashwin. You're not like overweight when you're not doing much of work.
Probably it's because I'm showing you my older photos, brother.
Maybe like following a good diet, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I generally keep it that I am kind of an early eater and my quantity is pretty less. I usually eat like 70% of my stomach. I don't eat full. I don't have or hog on biryanis. I stopped doing that probably after my teenage is over. I know that I'm not teenager anymore, even though I love to say I'm a 90s kid. Uh, but that's not the case. So I generally try to cut down probably, and I don't have sugars. Though I'm not diabetic, but still I don't like sugar at all nowadays.
I would
So I
like to
don't
see a
take
new,
sugar.
I would like to see a new photo, like the full size one, not the half. And where you put your money for investment? I mean, the reason
Uh,
I ask is because anyone who's listening to it, I want them to know, like for example, a fresher, because I started my investment very late because the thought was like I can make money like at any point of time. I'm making good money, but still, the realization of investing in stocks or in mutual funds or in FD, it came very late in my life. So, what does an investment plan look like, and what
okay.
advice would you like to give to the freshers who are joining any industry?
Definitely, yes, Suresh. So this is something that I've told all these 10 freshers when I met them also. But I would repeat the same thing. I was lucky enough to have a friend, who made me do this SIP investment, who forced me literally to sign a document to, invest SIP. It was BlackRock Mutual Fund, if I'm right. Though I don't want to name any specifics, but I still remember that was my first investment that I started in 2012. That was initially probably for tax saving purposes, Suresh, right? Just to evade, though we have those ceiling of 1.5 lakhs ATC category where you can invest on a long term mutual fund. You get a tax break on that. That was the reasoning when I started doing it. But when it came to a time where I wanted money and I stopped looking at it, in a sense, it was the monthly SIP that was going away from my account, and I made it to a point where I was probably increasing the percentage of SIP. Not every year. I was not very good at that point in time in my expenditures. I was not, even though my salary increased, I didn't increase the SIP. Until today, I feel bad for doing that. The reasoning is when I actually needed the money for my down payment, when I tried to purchase a residential land or property, it helped me a lot. And it would have been much better if I had increased the percentage. So I know that I'm not a very good when it comes to stock exchanges and whatnot. I'm not a an experienced person there. I don't spend too much time on analyzing the stocks and whatnot. Probably when it comes to a situation where I need my money to grow in that level, I would probably hire some people who might help me to do that. I don't want to probably look into those right now, but SIPs are something that anyone and everyone can, will, and should do, Suresh. That's my motto, right? Because you never know when you need money at that point in time. When you look back, you would have seen that it's grown a lot, and it did help me a lot support when I try to purchase a property. I don't want to be, a person who says don't party, don't enjoy. That's not me, because I did party, I did enjoy during my initial days. But just putting it off, a few things, on these kind of assets are actually hugely beneficial rather than putting them on, liabilities scale where you are a manager or a director. You putting on an investment on your car. It's not an investment; it's a liability at the end of the day. Once we get to that realization, it's great. I understand, freshers, when they come into the market, they start earning, they see money and they want to spend. That's the instinct, right? That's what happens with all of us,
Right.
and but I always tell them, and even today I was talking to one of my, resource today. I asked him, hey, did you do that? I told you to do this. Did you do that? He's like, yeah, I did, but I'm also thinking of taking a credit card. I was like, is it really needed for you to take a credit card now? Right, so those kind of small decisions make a larger impact on our life. As you mentioned, Suresh, the realization probably came late to us, and we are just telling them, hey, be careful on this, right? Because experience speaks at the end of the day.
Well, I completely agree with you because similar line of thinking, like when I had initially, people literally forced me to take LIC. I thought, why would I want to live longer? The purpose didn't, get registered in your head. Why you need to have an LIC? You need to have, you need to, when something goes wrong, you need to have proper fund for your family.
Yep.
And when the SIP I started it very late, and that too, again, lots of advertisement and TV and other stuffs. And the proposal gives more than FD. So I was a FD guy, and I used to, every month, some portion of my salary was getting into FD. Then from FD to mutual funds, and from mutual funds, what's the next thing? So instead of that, as you rightly said, I don't have the time or knowledge to invest in stock to learn about it. When I see people have the screen open and keep on tracking what is happening around it, it's really confusing and daunting as well. For them, it's very simple. Hey, listen, it's easy. I can understand, but I never understood. So I've used a third party to the investment part in stocks and all, and so far good. But again, as I said, the realization was very late. Could have done long better. But anyhow, that's it.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
That happens for all of us, and that's one of the reasons why I may not have invested too much in stocks and whatnot. But I have my life partner who helps me to handle my finances as well. So thanks to her, sometimes she looks after some of these ones.
I know you have a young kid, 3 months old. 3 years old.
Yeah. So she is 3 years old. She was born right during the peak of pandemic, May 2020.
Yeah.
So I think March is when our offices went into this work from home, or beautiful concept of work from home came into picture, and she was born on May 12th, 2020. So it was a peak COVID time, and still remember those days.
Fantastic. And does your wife work, or she's a kind of taking care of the baby and being a proper traditional housewife?
Yep. So she's taking care of two babies, me and my baby. And she was working in Accenture before. She was a Salesforce DevOps engineer, and all thanks to her that she's taking care of the family. And she tried jumping back, but she wanted to do more of a work from home concept. Now that every company is trying to get back the resources to their offices, she was finding it a bit difficult to get back onto her tasks of a job role, but she told she'll probably try again after 6-7 months. Hopefully things do work well when that happens, Suresh.
Fantastic. And Ashwin, do you have a set morning and night routine you love following, or?
YouTube, that's my night routine, and Outlook is my morning routine. Both are wrong, Suresh. Unfortunately, you're not asked the right person. I wake up with my Teams chat and Outlook. I get screamed every day for that, but I tried keeping away my phones in their hall, room, and where not. But that's where I go to, because I need to know what is my day looking like today in the morning, and in the night it's usually YouTube Shorts. That just doses me off like a baby.
Fantastic, Ashwin. It's a pleasure talking to you. To be honest, I've learned a lot from what you have shared today, especially in the gaming and casino industry, which I didn't aware of it. I hope our audience will also love your episode and what you've presented in today's talk. Appreciate your time, Ashwin. Thank you so much.
Thank you again so much, Suresh, for inviting me in this, and hopefully we do one more later on, sir.
Yeah, sure. Cheers, man. Thank you. Have
Perfect. Thank you so much, Suresh. Good day. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Onsite and Offshore Podcast. We hope you found our conversation insightful and engaging. And remember, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform. That way, you'll never miss an episode and will always be up to date with the latest insight and discussion. We love hearing from our listeners, so please don't hesitate to reach out with any question, comments, or feedback. You can find us on social media or shoot us an email. Goodbye and take care.